All right, people. I gotta talk about this one, I guess. I mean, people are gonna want to know what I think about it, right? The whole Seahawks world is talking about this right now, so we gotta talk about it for at least one video. And I'm hoping that it's really just the one video because I gotta be perfectly honest here. I think this is a textbook example of putting out a report that contains nothing new and nothing interesting, but convincing people that it's a bombshell. So I'll be perfectly honest. I'm just going to lead off this video with saying I don't really get it. I don't know why everybody's freaking out about this one. And I considered not even making a video about it because I don't think there's really much new to say here. So understand that I'm making this video mostly because I know that everyone's buzzing about it right now and people are going to be asking, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? I'm doing a stream tomorrow night, the 12K celebration stream. I don't want the whole stream to become about this. So I'm going to go ahead and put this video out there, and hopefully that'll end at least most of the discussion around it. So let's run it down here. Let's break it down. Let's dive into it. The Athletic earlier today posted an article, and I've gotten the general gist of the article. I've read a good chunk of it. I have not read the whole thing because it's behind a paywall, and you can forget about me paying so much as a penny to the Athletic after they fired their UW writer earlier today. Like that's not going to happen. I can tell you that right now. So I've read most of the article though from third-party sources, and basically it's being advertised and pushed as like an expose on Russell Wilson's final year in Seattle and his first year in Denver, talking about what a disaster he is, what a train wreck he is. I mean, okay, it's a little bit balanced. It actually did interview some people that weren't down on Wilson, that were taking a more balanced approach with him, and I don't want to pretend like this was pure like mudslinging or anything like that, but the draw of the article is, hey, come take a look at all the ways Russell Wilson messed up. And a lot of it had to do with what happened in Denver. But for Seahawks fans, I think the crux of the article, the interesting part of the article, was it is claimed that Russell Wilson requested that Pete Carroll and John Schneider get fired last year, and that the Seahawks should bring in Sean Payton, who had just stepped down as the coach of the Saints at the time of the request. So that is supposedly the thing that is supposed to get everybody to go, oh my God, bombshell. My thing is, I kind of feel like that was implied when we traded him, right? Like, maybe not at the time of the trade, maybe not at the exact moment of the trade, but as stuff started to be said after the trade and you started to see the process of getting to this moment where we actually decided to trade him, it it seemed like that was a given, like that was assumed, like that's not a plot twist. Like let's think about this here. We know that Russell Wilson has always been infatuated with Sean Payton, or been infatuated with him for some time at least. And we also know that in order to be traded, Wilson had to approve the trade. And in all likelihood, we also know that Russell Wilson needed to be asked to be traded in order for the trade to happen. Now, getting traded is a pain in the butt. You got to go to a new team, new city. You got to adjust to a brand new system, brand new teammates. Like I said, you got to do all these things that are different. If you're Russell Wilson and you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, I don't like the way things are going anymore, I think it makes sense to say, okay, my first option to change things would be, okay, I need to go to the owner and say, I want a new coach and I guess a new GM, right? Because that way you get to stay on the same team, the same city, keep a lot of the same teammates, maybe even keep the same offensive system depending on what happens with the offensive coordinator after Pete goes. Like, that's just kind of common sense, right? You would ask for those guys to get fired before you then move on to, okay, if you're not going to fire them, then I want to trade, right? And it's common sense that Wilson wanted a trade, right? I don't think you trade him unless he asks for it because, again, I'm going to keep hammering this point because I believe it's very pertinent here. Pete Carroll insisted several times after the trade was done that he didn't want to trade Russ. He did it basically because he realized he had no choice anymore because Russ wanted out and John wanted out. So if we're to believe that Russ didn't want to get traded and Pete didn't want to trade him, then how did a trade get done? Like, I know John probably wanted him gone because John was sick of him. John was sick of dealing with Mark Rogers. But would John Schneider alone have been able to overcome a quarterback that didn't request a trade and a coach that didn't want to trade him? I doubt it. So, to me, it was kind of implied that, yeah, Russ probably at some point at least indicated, I'd like a new coach, please. So, to me, not really news. And then there was a little bit of a subtitle to that where it was said that Russ believed that Pete and John were the reason why he couldn't get back to the Super Bowl, which to me the first thing kind of implies the second thing. Like, if you as a player want your team to fire your coach and get a new coach, you probably think that that coach is doing something wrong that is holding you back from top tier success. So I don't know. I don't know how this is supposed to be a bombshell. Um, I just feel like people are kind of like being tricked by the media into believing that something is a bombshell when it's not. Like this stuff, like I assumed that much. I didn't think that Russell Wilson was like, yeah, I think Pete's amazing and he's awesome and I think he's the greatest coach ever and I love being coached by him, but oh, I still want to get out of here. Never mind the fact that, I'm opening up this can of worms. I'm going to a new city. I got new teammates. Who knows who the coach is going to be over there? And I mean, as we saw, he went to a team with the worst coach imaginable, pretty much. Like, why would you subject yourself to all that unless you're sick of it? So the fact that there was it's either he goes or I go situation at some point with the Seahawks with Russ and Pete and John, I don't know. It just doesn't strike me as breaking news. And as for Russ wanting Pete gone, I mean, look, a lot of us wanted Pete gone. I wanted Pete gone. A lot of us still want Pete gone. I don't understand why this is such a awful, like, it's understandable, right? Like, even if you like Pete a lot, you have to acknowledge we have one playoff win in the last 6 years. Most coaches don't survive a stretch of football that is that lean. Now, it makes kind of some sense that Pete would survive it because he had a big success before that 6-year period. If anybody was going to succeed in those circumstances, it would be him. But you have to say that it's not beyond the pale. It's not like Pete Carroll had taken Russell Wilson to 4 Super Bowls and Russ was like, oh, we got to fire him because we didn't get 6. No. There had been an extended period of pretty average to, I guess you could say, slightly above average results. So I don't understand why it was so ridiculous for him to say, yeah, I kind of want this to go a different way. Now, obviously, he went to another place and he kind of proved that he wasn't nearly as good as pretty much anybody thought. I mean, I don't think anybody thought he was going to suddenly morph into the worst quarterback in the league the way that he did. Even the people who really don't like him probably didn't think that. But I can understand that, and I'm not terribly surprised by it, and I'm not going to, and I don't see the moral outrage that some people are pushing. And most of the article, here's the thing that really gets me. Some of the highlight, like this tweet right here. Nathaniel Hackett was too accommodating. Broncos gave Wilson his own office. Wilson had too much influence. We all already knew that. We knew that basically beyond any shadow of a doubt. I mean, we heard the reports all year of Wilson's people, Team 3, Jake Heaps, going around giving unsolicited advice to other Broncos players. People who were not on the Broncos payroll, and Nathaniel Hackett was allowing that. We all know about the own office thing. We all know about all these things that went wrong in Denver. Like, I don't think any of this is new. Is anybody surprised by this? Of course Nathaniel Hackett was too accommodating. He didn't play his starters at all in the preseason, trying to ingratiate himself to them under the pretext of, oh, we don't want them to get hurt. And then the season starts, and they have a miserable start to the season where they can't score at all, partially probably because he didn't give them any reps in the preseason. He was trying to be a player's coach. That's always what he was. So I don't think that's news. We all knew about the own office thing. That's all anybody talked about half the time about Wilson. And yeah, there were Wilson's people in the building at Broncos mini camp, training camp, practice, blah, 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 that had no business being there. And I remember reading reports months ago about, oh, Jake Heaps was going around trying to tell other players what to do. And of course, he wasn't even working for the Broncos. So what the heck is he doing that? Like, yeah. The only thing I can really think of is the idea that this article is supposed to confirm what we already pretty much knew, but the thing is, the article doesn't even do that. I mean, Wilson came out right after the article got posted saying, I love Pete and he was a father figure to me and John believed in me and drafted me. I never wanted them fired. So if you're being objective here, if you're not assuming that Wilson lies every time he opens his mouth, which I know some people do, and I get it, but we still don't know. I'm sorry, we don't. It's a story written by a reporter who claims to have interviewed a bunch of people. This is all alleged still. It still is. So I don't see how anything's changed. Any Seahawks fan that is smart knew that Wilson probably wanted a divorce from Pete. That's why the trade happened. So I think it's just common sense to say that before Wilson demanded a trade, he probably tried to see if he could get Pete and John pushed out so he could just stay where he is and get the new coach that he wants. That's very possible. In fact, I think it's almost definitely probable, and I would be shocked if it didn't happen. Why go through the trouble of being traded when you could just maybe push the old coach out? Look, guys, believe me, nobody had more fun than me watching Wilson fall flat on his face last year. It was hilarious. I loved it. And to a certain extent, I think that he deserved it. I think that at the end of the day, it helped this team tremendously on a objective, just technical draft pick level, and also an emotional morale level to see Wilson play that badly when he left Seattle, and to see the success that Seattle did have without him. Like, that stuff was great. I loved it. It was hilarious watching Wilson find a new way to embarrass himself every week. I freely admit that. But he's not a bad person. He's not. I mean, I think he's a bad quarterback now, but he's not a bad person, and he's not... And we don't have to treat every single news report about him now as like, oh, this is further proof that he's the devil in disguise here. So, just, I don't know. I'm trying to see where this article is supposed... Like, I saw a tweet earlier this morning that said, in all caps, bombshell. And I thought it was going to be something big, maybe some big expose about how Wilson's charity was some massive scam that was designed to funnel money into his pocket or something like that. And then I read all this stuff that I feel like I kind of knew 8-9 months ago. And I feel like we all knew 8-9 months ago. So, I don't know. It just feels like we're getting tricked, in a way, into believing that something is big news when it's just not. It was big news a year ago when we traded him. It was big news 10 months ago when we were still processing the trade. And now it's just kind of like, yeah, of course there was that it's him or me moment with the Seahawks. Hard for me to believe that there wasn't. Why else would he get traded? Trades for a franchise quarterback, or what we thought was a franchise quarterback, they're not easy. You wouldn't do it unless there was a really good reason to do it. And Seattle did not have some super blue chip, once in a decade quarterback prospect sitting on the bench waiting to go behind Wilson. No. It wasn't like, oh, we need to get this guy out of here so the young guy gets his chance. It was, we've got Geno Smith and nothing. Actually, at the time, we didn't even have Geno Smith. We had nobody at quarterback. And we were like, nah, it's time to go. So something drastic must have happened. So those are my thoughts on the article. I hope that kind of wraps up everything. Those are the main highlights. It's like we're supposed to get outraged and we're supposed to freak out because Wilson wanted Carroll and John fired and requested it. Like, yeah, of course he did. He tried. I think that's kind of common sense. All right, guys. Let me know what y'all think. Hopefully that kind of puts everything about this article to bed. if you read the whole article from the actual Athletic and maybe there's something that you're seeing there that maybe I didn't comment on, let me know as well. See you guys later. Go Hawks. That's my thoughts.